Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's good to have many of you from across the country on the webinar today. I'm Nikki Yama. I'm the Advocacy Manager for the Marlborough Wine region and also the project lead for this really exciting project. It's shaping up to be one of the most comprehensive and future-focused workforce initiatives we've seen in the wine industry in New Zealand. So really pleased to be part of it. Just a wee bit of background on me and why someone from the Marlborough wine industry is leading this discussion today. For the past 18 months, I've been working with a group of industry leaders here in Marlborough to front foot the current and future workforce challenges we're facing here. And over the last 6 months, that work has morphed, or part of that work has morphed into a national collaboration with the support of New Zealand wine growers and the Sector Workforce Engagement Program, which is part of Kānoa and MBIE. I'd just like to acknowledge Nicola Crennan, my colleague from New Zealand Wine Growers, and Kendra Mackey and Joe Very, my colleagues from SWEP, who are here today on the call. So to present today, the focus is on the Wine Industry Skills Survey, which, as you can see, and hopefully are convinced by our discussions today, is the most important survey you can complete to ensure the future of your workforce. And I'm joined by my colleague Amanda Reid at the Business and Economic Research Limited. She's a principal consultant there. Now, Business Economic and Economic Research Limited, also known as BERL, is a specialist research consultancy with expertise in workforce research and planning. So today I'll cover off on some background and some relevant information about this work for you and for your businesses. And Amanda's going to go a little later into detail on what the the Wine Industry Skills Survey is and what you need to know to complete it. So Amanda, if you could go to the next slide, that would be helpful. Thank you. So as I've alluded already, the skills survey isn't just any survey. It's a pretty comprehensive survey, a full stock take of the workforce for New Zealand's wine industry. It looks at all the current roles and skills, and it's a really important piece of information that will underpin the forecast for the future skills needed across the industry. So grower and production roles are a really important part of this, but we're also looking at roles that are key to getting a bottle of wine from the vineyard all the way to market. So things like sales, logistics, distribution, and marketing. And what's also important is the roles that are key to helping businesses thrive and run. So finance, HR, engineering, sustainability, leadership, and management roles, just to name a few. The survey is for all our grape grower and winery members, but it's also for all businesses associated with the wine industry. So if you think about who offers you goods and services in your core business, particularly those who do a lot of work for you, they're also included. So that might look like bottling, distribution and logistics, engineering and sheet metal services, RSC employers and labour contracting, vineyard management and consulting services. So all of those businesses are also invited and welcomed to participate in the survey, and will help give us a really good understanding of what the wine sector workforce really looks like. Importantly, the skills survey will involve all of New Zealand's wine growing regions. Next slide, please, Amanda. So this piece of work is really key to addressing current workforce pressure and preparing our industry for the future. So we've grown a lot over the last couple of decades, the New Zealand wine sector, and a lot has changed, but we're not sure if our understanding of our information has changed with it. The survey will provide a snapshot of the current skills and roles that allow us to sense check our assumptions and who and what makes up our workforce. It'll help us tell a richer, more nuanced story about the career pathways, opportunities, and development needed in the industry, and it will help us attract the people and talent that we need. It's an important basis, as I've said, to forecast the future skills needed in the industry, and we'll go into that in a little more detail toward the end of the webinar. I've got a few little icons there that talk about how the world is changing. So the world of work is changing, and I'm sure you've felt it. It's not just a COVID product. There's lots coming down the line. So we've got changing population demographics, which naturally is going to change our workforce. Our work environments have changed, a lot more remote and flexible work going on. And our future workforce are currently developing a very different worldview to many of us. All of these things are changing the way we need to think about work and how we prepare our businesses for that future workforce. A big movement across the world is a shift towards skills-based organizations, and this is going to be really key for the wine industry to get ahead of. So the skills survey is going to provide a robust evidence base to plan the future of our workforce. It's important at an industry level. And for us in the New Zealand wine industry, it'll help us compete globally for the skills, talent, and capability that we require. Next slide, Amanda. So I've talked about this being a comprehensive survey, and it is. We'll go into detail on that soon. But for you to complete the survey, you need to know that there's something in it for you. It's not just an industry good project, although that's a huge part of it. It will allow us at an industry level to develop some very good strategic plans for our future workforce. At a business level, it'll help you understand the sector's current workforce and how your business stacks up. It'll show you some of the gaps and opportunities for your business and where you might need to build capability and capacity for the future of your business. It will help you develop insights into the skills needed in the sector and where they apply to your business. So really important point to emphasize here is that this is going to provide some key insights at an industry level, but also we're very focused on developing some outputs that are tailored towards business so you can take them away and apply them to your own workforce planning within your businesses. Okay, so next slide, Amanda, and I'm going to transition now to Amanda Reid. Kia ora, Amanda, thank you for joining us today.
Kia ora tātou, thanks everyone for joining in. So Nikki's kind of given a really good background rationale to how we've got to this point. And so there's been a lot of thinking, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion to get to a point where we then step in as researchers and say this is how we can gather this data, because that's kind of like our area of expertise. And as Nikki's mentioned, the survey is a stock take, and anyone that's done a stock take knows that when you're looking at that, you're looking at quite a large amount of data, large amount of detail. So in terms of navigating the survey is, as Nikki's mentioned, from vineyard to market. It's open to all businesses. And again, because we're talking about data, the more data we have, the better. We want as much representation from across regions, from across the supply chain, from growers to contract winemakers to labour supply. We're looking right across the spectrum to really understand what are the skills that are in the whole wine workforce. So what's really important is that we're not collecting data that identifies you as a business, that everything you share is confidential, no personal information will go into any reports or outputs, no individual businesses will be identified. So it's about collating that information by different parts of the wine industry, by regions, and being able to then tell a really as complete a story as possible about what that labour demand is, what the skills are that the industry needs. So when it comes to analysis, we'll be reporting, we'll be aggregating, which is the real flash word for bringing it all together, and then we'll be reporting that on a regional and a national level. So you should be able to look at the reports that come out of this and see yourself in there, see your type of business and your region represented within the survey. So we're using a platform called SurveyMonkey. You've probably seen a few surveys going through on that. It's got really good privacy and data protection mechanisms. So that's kind of the platform that we'll be using. You'll get a link, a survey link that you can click into, and it'll take you right through the survey. There's quite an extensive instructions, because as we're going to go through, there's a number of sections that are asking quite a lot of information, and it's really, really important that you read those instructions and that you refer back to them. So you might want to download them, might want to bookmark the web page on the Wine Marlborough website that it's going to be on, because those instructions are your best friend as you go through the survey. You can guarantee that any question that you've got is probably in those survey instructions. If it isn't, then we're available here to help you if anything comes up that's a bit tricky. The survey will take time for larger organisations, but the way we've designed it is that you can go in and just chip away at it. You don't need to try and do it all at the same time. So long as you've just got the one device, which is the one laptop or the one desktop that people are going back to, then you'll be able to access your previous information, so you can return to it over time. And that's probably the approach that I would take if you're a large organisation, or even if you're a smaller organisation and this is like additional, on top of your day-to-day activity. Just do what you can and keep coming back to it. That's the best advice I can give you. Okay. So there are a number of sections in the survey. Again, just reinforcing, go back to your instructions. There are 5 primary sections in the survey. The first one, it will help us with that aggregation part, so that we can see the type of businesses, and then if we're wanting to tell a story about what the skills pipeline or the skills demand is for wine growers versus labour suppliers. This section around business information is where we'll be coming to. It also asks questions about regions you operate in, where if you operate in multiple regions, where your New Zealand headquarters is. That business information is kind of like business demographics. Now, the second section is the bulk of the survey. It is the spine of the survey, and it is where the most value in terms of the data for you as a business, for your region, for your sector within the wine industry, and for the overall picture, the skills section. So this section is going to ask you to use your job descriptions and list just the top few skills that these jobs need and the duties that they do. This is our core data that we will be collating together so that we can get a picture of the skills that are needed within the industry. It also asks around internal and external training. There are some REM questions, or one REM question, and a little bit about work structure. But this is the bulk of the survey. And this is the one that will probably take you the most amount of time, particularly if you're a larger organisation. The third section is a shorter section and asks around staff turnover. So that's looking at exit interviews, where people might have gone, if you know, and what your turnover rates look like. This again is really helpful information to be able to tell a story around what the vacancies are doing to the industry, what the turnover is doing to the industry. Section 4, in terms of business operations, is a few additional business type of questions, and that one you should go through reasonably quickly. And the last one, this is the future risks and opportunities. This is all qualitative. In other words, it is your voice, your opinion, for you to say what you think the risks and opportunities are for your business and for the industry around workforce. This will be really powerful information to contextualise the earlier sections around skills, vacancies, turnover, and really put your voice and the industry's voice into being able to advocate for for change, and also to be able to paint a picture of what are the opportunities, where does the industry see itself going, and where are the similarities and differences across business types and across regions. And again, just reinforcing, only one computer or device can be linked to your survey responses. So as soon as somebody clicks in and starts answering, that device is the same device that needs to be used. But it is really a team effort. There are different parts of the section, the survey, where, say, section 5 around risks and opportunities, this is where you may want to talk to your leadership team and ask them what they think the risks and opportunities are. For skills and training, you may want to talk to different parts of your organisation and be able to feed in that information. So it's likely that for some organisations, they'll need to talk to other people within their business to get that information. So this is really just a snapshot of what it's going to look like. This is the first page, or the second page actually, it says page 1. But the first page you list in this section, section 2, around skills and training. You will list the main job descriptions. You can collate these if you have ones that are kind of reasonably similar. And in this, you're just putting like main tasks, core skills, technical skills. The instructions tell you what core skills are, but these will be things like teamwork, problem solving. These are things that you might have in lots of different types of roles. Forklift license would come under technical skill, because that's a skill that's specific to a particular type of job. Fermentation might also be, or understanding fermentation might be, a technical skill as well. And this will feed into future work that we'll be looking at doing as part of this workforce planning, of understanding what career pathways, what skills pathways are available between the wine industry and other industries, or within different parts of the wine industry. So what else is planned? This, what else is planned, is the different parts of the work that is happening. So one of the things that we are doing, and we've just started looking at this database, there's a massive database of all the job listings from 2012 across New Zealand and Australia, and it looks at some of the same kind of information that the survey is asking, but it also has some really amazing trend data. So we can see how demand has grown over time. Like, in fact, yesterday when the team did our first training on this data platform, we could see that the wine industry, or demand for workers in the wine industry in New Zealand, has grown more than demand in Australia. So even that statistic was really interesting before we start looking at what skills have grown, where what duties have changed, whether there's been changes in qualifications, what regions have seen growth. So this data that we'll be looking at in terms of the job advert data will complement the survey data, and we are going to develop a cluster or a matrix of looking at the core skills, the technical skills and specialist skills across the whole wine industry workforce, and where the trend has been. And once you start looking at trends between the survey and the skills clustering data, the job advert data, we can start to make some projections of what the demand might look like. And this will be really powerful in terms of your own workforce planning, and also for being able to advocate to government to be able to support you in the training that you need for the industry to be able to thrive, and to have the workforce with the skills and qualifications that you need. So we'll be able to also identify between the survey and the job advert data and particularly when we're looking at vacancies, any of the high risk areas. So these are the areas where maybe the demand for skills that you have is not being met by the labour supply market. So again, that's going to help industry and business plan better to meet the skill needs for the workforce that you need. There is another section of work that we'll be looking at in terms of stakeholder engagement, and this will be talking to various interested parties, including business, including government agencies involved in supporting the wine industry, to make sure data is amazing, but if we had this massive report full of tables and graphs, that's only going to be interesting for people like me. For businesses and government to be able to use it, we want to make sure we tailor it to how they're going to be using it. So we'll be developing these outputs and these deliverables in consultation with you as businesses and with government to make sure that the information is usable and useful. And you can integrate it into your workforce planning. So.
Right, we had a couple of questions come through in the chat while you were running through the survey, Amanda. So one of the first questions is, if we have operations in multiple regions, will we have to split the information by region?
In terms of, can I read the question? If you have you would hope that whoever is in the head office or the corporate office is answering the survey, and that perhaps just one, but you don't want to be duplicating. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for one business to complete one survey. And if you have a corporate office, say that you have operations across Marlborough, Wairarapa, Hawke's Bay, but your corporate office is in Marlborough, then ideally there's someone in Marlborough is answering that survey, wherever your corporate or your headquarters, whatever you call it, is located. That would be the ideal. But again, the people in that, whoever is answering that survey in that place, should do that in consultation with their regional workforce. What we don't want is that the person in, for that same kind of example, that you get a duplicate answer. So someone in Wairarapa is answering for the whole business, and someone in Hawke's Bay is answering for the whole business, as well as Marlborough. So ideally it's one survey response per entity.
Cool, thanks, Amanda. Another question, will there be any remuneration insights?
Well, that is one of the questions, but it's not the core focus. The core focus is around skills. So there will be insights around REM, and we'll work with the team on what that looks like, because I know there's not a separate REM survey this year. Is that correct, Nikki?
Yeah, so I mean, this is an interesting question. We've only ever had, at a wine industry association, we've had a very focused remuneration survey for Marlborough's vintage workforce. But outside that, I know that New Zealand wine growers have worked with Strategic Pay, so they do a remuneration survey for the wider industry. And in that, although it has mostly permanent roles, it also does have seasonal roles in it too. So we're not trying to duplicate existing work. And as you've said, it's not the core focus, but there will be some remuneration questions in there.
Yeah, so there will be something that will be helpful in that space. And I guess because we're asking across different regions, then you'll be able to compare with your region in a way that, and with other regions in a way that you probably haven't been able to before, because that REM information will tie to job duties, it will tie to that region and to that type of business. So we should be able to get some good insights that complement the work around skills.
Yeah, it's not intended to be a benchmark for individual businesses the way Marlborough's Vintage Remuneration Survey is, but it is going to be quite a good industry level benchmark for us to see how we stack up against other industries and groups. So another question here is, will you also be working with ITOs on current formal training available? I might take that one, and perhaps if Nicola wants to join to respond as well, if it's relevant for NZW. So in terms of that, Marlborough's working with a bunch of stakeholders to do a long-term workforce development plan, and we certainly will be working with Te Pukenga and primary ITO, and as we go through that work. So this piece of work we're doing with the skills survey and the research we're doing with Bill is to provide a really strong evidence base for us, for the other regions, for the wine industry nationally, to then build a longer term plan for. And as we do this work, both the current workforce research and building that plan, we're engaging with those key stakeholders such as the ITOs, to align what the needs are and what their work is and how we can align those two. A short answer, yes.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, I agree. It's going to provide some really good validation for existing qualifications, and also identify where those, in that future forecasting, where there might be some gaps that will enable us to have some really good conversations with them around developing and funding those.
Cool. So we have another question here. I'm just going to read it, Stu, thanks for this. We'd like to invite supporting companies to also complete the survey. Could you provide a persuasive email for us to use? Absolutely. We've had some great support from NZW to put together a simple summary of what we're doing with some cool infographics. So we'll send that out far and wide, please, and I'll send some content or copy for you to include. So please send that to all your contacts to encourage them to participate.
Yeah, and just following on from that, we're about to reach out to all of the regional associations and provide that kind of content, and be encouraging them to reach out for their networks. But I don't think there can be too many messages going on around this, so use networks.
Second part of Stu's question, would there be a possibility for a smaller supporting industry version of the survey? Yeah, I mean, always possibilities, and you know who to speak to. So you can come to Nicola or I on that. I think we'll see how this survey goes. Well, and it's a starting point for us, so I'm really keen to see how it builds, and whether it needs to be a separate survey for those supporting industry businesses or not. We'll get a good sense from this first one, I think. I feel like I've missed a question, but it might have gone. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes, and if there are any other questions, Marcus is sitting in the room with me, is going to type in. Thank you. How do we get growers engaged to fill in the survey? So that's a tricky one, isn't it? And again, yeah, look at me thinking how we do this. Tomorrow we're going out to meet our growers in the Awatere Valley and the Wairau Valley to meet them in person and talk a bit more about this and have a general discussion about what's going on in the wine industry. It is hard to convey how important the survey is and how meaningful it will be to you all ultimately, when you're all very busy just doing the mahi that you have underway at the moment. So it's about, I think, sharing what's in it for them, that this is ultimately going to make us a more attractive industry for everyone to come and join, that it'll provide some very good insight into who we need to bring into the industry and how we need to train them, that it will make their jobs easier. And how do we get them to fill in the survey? I think that's a conversation at the pub, or, you know, at school drop-off, or whatever, just socializing what the survey is and how it can help.
I guess just in terms of adding to that, like the whatever the deliverable is, we don't want to presuppose what this is going to look like without talking to industry and without seeing the data. But whatever this is that's going to be provided to businesses, this will be something that they will be able to use, and they won't have had to have paid for it. This type of research, for you to do this for your own business, is usually exceptionally costly and exceptionally time intensive. So being able to have your a report that then lets you know what the skills are in your region or your particular area of the supply chain, that gives you a bigger picture. That type of information is not usually available because we're operating in our own businesses, we're aware of our needs, but this gives you a big picture that you won't get any other way without having to individually go to a research consultancy and provide it. So the value in this is just phenomenal. You'll be able to see look at the report and say, oh, well, this is where I sit, where I compare to other regions or other businesses within the region, and to get an idea of where your operations might need to improve or where you're already doing really well. But the idea is that actually this is not just data for data's sake. Whatever comes out of this will be really, really practical in terms of helping to plan for your workforce within your own human resources. Because we're all quite pushed. We're in this very constrained labour market where, you know, everyone wants good workers and it's really hard to find them. And this will give you information around what type of good workers are needed in the wine industry and where else you might be able to be looking for them.
Awesome, Amanda, thank you. We also had a question, it's disappeared, but we wanted to address it as well. And Marcus, thank you, he's just reminded me of it, was who should fill in the survey? So ideally it's someone within the business and who has oversight of all the roles. Historically, some of the surveys we've done were targeted for different types. So if you are the winemaker, but you don't have oversight of the vineyard roles, then you're probably not the best person to fill out that survey, but you may feed into it. Definitely bring this to your leadership team or to your HR team and advocate for your business completing it and work with them to complete it if that's an option. Amanda, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, probably, particularly the section 2 is there might be other elements that different people within the business feed into, but whoever's responsible for the employment side of things, and knows what those job descriptions look like, knows what type of skills, is able to access that HR and that payroll data, particularly for that section 2. That's who should be filling that section in. But again, it may be that whoever the primary person is that completes it talks to other people. If you look at your instructions, it will tell you the type of information, and you can gather that, feed that in. Sit together at the laptop or desktop and complete it.
Terrific. If you've got more questions, we've got my email address at the end, so you can always email me, and if I don't know the answer, I can find out for you. So we might just close off and move to the next slide on who's involved. So we've covered this, but this is a national effort. It's a collaboration with New Zealand Wine Growers, SWEP, and Wine Marlborough. New Zealand Wine Growers are providing some significant funding for the project, as are SWEP. So thank you very much to them to enable this for industry good. And Wine Marlborough have provided me to project manage and lead the work. So if you've got questions, you can come to me. When it comes to what's happening next, come to me and Nicola, please. That would be really helpful. So our aim here really is to position our New Zealand wine industry competitively on the global stage, so we can attract the people we need well into the future. It's also to support the participants of the survey with key insights in how they can attract their workforce and understand their future workforce. So that's pretty much it from us today. Last slide, Amanda. Here we go. So my email address is there. So if you've got questions, you want more information, then please reach out. Next week, the survey will open, and we will send out a communication with the survey link and information about the survey, as will New Zealand Wine Growers. We'll host some information about the survey on our website, so you'll be able to find all of that there. And we will also, as we were asked earlier, we'll share some information for you to circulate to your networks about this project and the survey itself. So don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions. And thank you all for your time this afternoon. Thank you, Amanda.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a great initiative, by the way. Thanks heaps.
Thank you.